ask you a question. Does anybody have any anxiety in their life right now? Yeah? Go ahead, raise your hand. I can raise my hand too, okay? I get it, okay? So why don't we all, because I just drove up here, why don't we all just shut our eyes for a minute and let's just listen for something quiet for a second. Take a deep breath. So good morning. My name's Kurt VandeMotter, and I own a company called Linked Executive Search. I'm a retained search executive. I get hired by companies to fill hard-to-fill jobs. I've been doing it for 16 years, and that's the only commercial you're going to get out of me, okay? I'm here for you all today. Some of you raised your hands and said you got anxiety. It could be because you only got a quarter of a tank of gas and you only got $100 in your account and you're trying to get downtown and you don't have enough money to do that, or you're trying to figure out how you're going to make your tuition payment for your kid next semester, or you've got a mortgage payment coming up. Anxiety, it's real, okay? It's there. And if you're in job search right now and you've got anxiety, you just saw it, so does everybody else, okay? This is a community. And I encourage you, after I leave, I encourage you all to continue to be a community and continue to talk to each other and to continue to get to know each other. There's a book out there that I just read that I've recommended to so many people. A really good friend of mine, Jim Hutchinson, reads probably more than, and most people I know, maybe 2 books a week. And so when I refer a book to Jim, I don't expect him to say, I expect him to say, I've already read it. Well, in his case, he hadn't read it. It's called The Psychology of Money. Okay, The Psychology of Money. Any of you read it? Okay. I highly recommend this book, and it's not that it's going to help you get a job, but I just hope, I think it will just set your mind at ease, whether you're young or you're old or you're, whatever you are, wherever you're at in your journey, I think it'll just help you set your mind at ease, and it helps you understand that it's, just because somebody drives up in a Range Rover and gets out with a fancy pair of shoes doesn't mean that their life is great. Okay, we all have anxiety. We all have anxiety. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about job search today, and I hope that I can take away a little of that anxiety, unload it on me, okay? Give it to me to take home, and then I'll put it in a bucket. That's what the sermon was on Sunday. I'll take all your anxiety, I'll put it in a little bucket, and I'll take it home and I'll pray for you and with you for the next couple of weeks and try to help you through that journey. So, what's my agenda today? Your agenda. I have questions for every one of you, but I bet everybody here, I hope everybody here has got questions for me, okay? So, what I want you to do is I want this to be your meeting today. Okay, if you've got a question, you can start right now. I got a question about this. I got a question about that. I want to know your questions, because if you've got a question, there's a chance. As I remember, there were a couple of hands that went up that said there was anxiety in the room. There's a chance that maybe somebody else in the room's got that same question, and we can help a couple of you. Fair enough? Good enough. Any questions?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
When I apply for jobs, I typically revise my resume specific to the job description each
Right.
time. But on LinkedIn, this easy apply, you can't do that. What would you suggest?
Well, what I would suggest is, do you typically know the name of the company when you're applying? Yeah. I'd go to their website and apply through their website. I'd get out of LinkedIn. Yeah. You'll hear a recruiter say occasionally, get out of LinkedIn. When I'm talking to recruiters, when I'm talking to candidates, I want to get out of LinkedIn. I'm an old guy. I want to get out of LinkedIn and I want to have a conversation. I want to have a call. I want to get off of technology. So in this particular case, get out of LinkedIn, go to their website and apply online. I think your chances will improve dramatically. But what Ann brought up was a good point. Did anybody else have that question about LinkedIn? Because that's a good one, okay? Good. Check a couple boxes. That's good. But what Ann brought up was also a really good point. I sat up here on a panel about 8 months ago, and I was with some younger recruiters, and something came up that was really interesting. That is, you make modifications to your resume to match the job description, okay? If you all aren't doing that, that's a big gap. And here's why. Number one, just go to the applicant tracking systems. You hear about that all the time and different things that go on in applicant tracking systems, and it's a hairy monster. But the fact is that if your job title, if your resume doesn't match up to the job title of what they're looking for, chances, not 100% chances are you might get rejected. Secondly, that's just one avenue. Let's say that they're not using a sophisticated applicant tracking system and they just got young recruiters, okay? And I'm not calling out young people versus old people here. I'm just saying that there are a lot of young recruiters that have just started the recruiting industry. They've only been doing it for a couple of years. They're working for the VP of ... and he sent this recruiter out to go find him a ... And if Ann's resume doesn't match up to that ... guess what? She's probably not going to have the confidence to go deeper into the resume to realize that what Ann's really doing is exactly what he's looking for. But she's intimidated, or he's intimidated, because they don't want to take a bunch of bad resumes in to their boss, okay? I personally don't look at job titles as much as I look at what have you done, okay? That's when I'm working with a company and a company calls me and says, Kurt, can you help us fill this job? And there's a company that I recently started working for. If anybody wants to move to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, call me. Yeah. I said hard to fill jobs, right? Yeah, here we go. Sioux Falls, South Dakota, VP of sales and a VP of marketing. But when they called me, it was about 8 months ago. And he asked me, he found me on the internet through Forbes. I'm recognized by them. So I get pulled up a lot of times for companies that are looking for unique recruiters. And so he called me and we talked for a little bit. And when you work with a retained recruiter, I take a bunch of money up front, not a bunch, but a little bit of money up front so that we're retained. He's got skin in the game, I got skin in the game. So we talked for about 30 minutes and then I never heard from him again. And so I'm a sales guy all day long, but I don't sell my business. I just sell it by doing what I do, and I hope that I get a lot of referrals. And in this particular case, I decided I'd call him back. So I called him back. I said, Brandon, we haven't talked in a while. Have you filled those jobs? And he said, Kurt, I just got to tell you, you're going to be like my 5th recruiter that I've worked with. And I've never paid anybody a referral or a retainer before. And I'm just thinking about it. I said, that's cool. I said, do me a favor, and will you send me your thoughts on what it is you want these executives to accomplish in the first year? What are the problems you want them to solve? I don't need to know that you need a good communicator. I don't need to know that you need a good leader. I don't need to know that you need somebody that knows how to do e-commerce. I need to know what are the problems that your business is trying to solve, because what you do in business is different than what my other client does in business over here, okay? So when I'm looking at your resume, when I'm looking at you on LinkedIn, I am looking at you in the sense of, can you solve the problems that my client is having or that they're trying to solve or that they want to accomplish in the next year? Any questions? Great question, Ian.
This is following to hers, but I heard that some people are taking the job description and pasting it to the end of their resume in order to get it to link up.
I've not heard that. Has anybody ever heard? Yeah, I heard a couple of people laugh. There must be some people that have heard about that.
Yes.
I've not. But man, it possibly makes sense, right? And in the old days, we used to be able to take 800 words and put them in white. They were whited out in the bottom of your resume, so that when Monster and what was that other? Is Monster still around?
I know, that's a good question.
They are, okay. That your resume would come up more often, and then every week, every Friday, you go in and take your middle initial out, and then you put your middle initial back in, and you take it out, because every week you'd have a new resume, and that yeah, okay. I don't know, but if it works, use it. right? I mean, who am I to say? I wouldn't stop doing it. Nobody's scolding you for it. Will you get back and tell us what the results were?
I don't know if I'm gonna do it.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes, sir. This table is really hot over here. Are they good? This good every week? Is
Very
this?
attentive. Are people really finding the exact resources they're looking for these days? I mean, it seems to me that there's an awful lot of purple squirrel,
The purple squirrel, yeah.
right? And are people really finding
Yeah.
the resources that match exactly what they're looking for?
Yeah, they are. Well, I say they are, I at least in the businesses I work with. Or I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing, and I wouldn't get called back again. But maybe the bigger question is are there more purple squirrels today in the people are looking for this versus they're looking for generalist, okay? And I think that the answer to that question is there's no question. There are more purple squirrels today than there are generalists. That's again why you have to really hone in on what you're doing. Again, let's go back to Ann identified that she's found some companies on LinkedIn that she might want to apply for a job. Okay, we've determined that it's best to go to their website. So let's just take another minute and talk about before you just go to their website and fill out an application. Okay, you know the name of the company, right? Now, have we taken time to go into LinkedIn to identify whether there are anybody in our network that we're connected to that work for that company? So that's step one, right? Make sure that you assess the situation. Do you know anybody that works in that company before you apply for the job? And before you apply to the job, if you know somebody that you're first connected to, then let's pick up the phone and call. Hey, Jackie, you're at such and such a company. Do you have 6 minutes? So do you have 6 minutes? Don't just launch into questions. Do you have 6 minutes? I got a couple questions for you. And those questions are going to be around not asking Jackie if she can get you a job, but you're going to learn from Jackie as much as you can about what it's like to work at that company and what are the biggest problems they're trying to solve. What's keeping them up at night? Who are their biggest competitors? Would she love to stay there for another 20 years or is she looking to get out? Okay? If we're connected to somebody, before you hit the apply button, let's make sure we do those phone calls first and get as much information as we can. The second best call is somebody that is you're first connected to that doesn't work there anymore, but worked there within the last year and a half, okay? Because companies can change over 2 years, 4 years, 5 years. If somebody worked at Frito-Lay 20 years ago and you're calling to say what it was like to work there, hey, I worked there 25 years ago too, and I can tell you it was a lot of fun, but I don't know anything else, right? So if you know somebody within a year and a half, that's the second best call. And then if you have to go into your second connections, and if somebody can help identify, make a quick introduction for you, help you get introduced to somebody that you can have that conversation with, again, before you hit the apply button. All this is heavy lifting, y'all. Nobody else can do the work for you. You're the only one that can do it. You can't hire a recruiter, okay? I get candidates that call me every day. Can I hire you to help me find a job? No, you can't. I did that once. I did it through COVID, y'all, for 2 candidates. And you talk about the worst job you ever had in your life, okay? Oh my gosh. I can only be as accountable to myself as I am to anybody else. So I send you away with 10 things that you need to do next week, and we get together. Did you do these 10 things? No, I didn't. Did you find me a job yet? No, I didn't. You didn't know those 10 things. Well, I decided to take my vacation with my family. Okay, let's work on those 10 things next week. Did you get them done? No. So there's nobody that can find you a job but yourself. Okay, don't ever forget that. It's heavy lifting, and you've got to go deep into some of these situations. But that's what I would do before I apply for a job, to learn as much as you can. During that process, just 1 second, during that process, you might also, if you and Jackie haven't talked in a while, you can then allude to, hey, there is a job open. Do you know the hiring manager? let God take its course and let that conversation continue for 10 or 12 or 20 minutes if it can be, because there could be some golden nuggets at the end also. So don't just go in for that, but don't go for the kill. Go in for, hey, I'm just trying to learn more about your organization. Okay? Question.
Yeah, some of the feedback I've been getting, to your point about looking through your network before you apply for the job, is that if you take more than a day or two, that job's been taken down. They got so many applicants, they've taken the job down already. So
Yep.
a lot of times I tell people, go ahead and apply for it, then search your network to make sure your application is in there first.
Yeah. I don't disagree, but you've got to move quick. You got to move quick. So what does it take to take that company name, throw it in your network, and see if you're connected? You might not be able to make the connection, but if you know you got a couple connections that you're going to be able to make, then in that case, I would follow your recommendation and go apply, but go through their website and apply. And then hit the advance button as fast as you can and try to get the whole of those people to see what you can learn. Okay? What other questions we got? You're next.
What do you got?
Yeah, I also heard that, and I'm trying to do that. Go to Glassdoor to check how the people is thinking about the company and if there is any jobs over there. So I go to LinkedIn and then I find a job. Then I go to Glassdoor to check if it's convenient to get to work there or it's just going to be miserable to be there.
Yep.
I don't want to move to a work that is going to be miserable and then I'm trapped.
Right. So, technology can be your best friend. It can be your worst friend. And I don't disagree with that. But one of the things that I want to encourage you all to do is that you're not likely going to get your job through your computer sitting at your desk at home all day long. Okay? You got to get out and come to these meetings. You got to get out and interview. You got to get out and sit in Starbucks and have a conversation with somebody that you meet there and go challenge yourself to read a book and go do something different than sitting in your home. You got to get out of that house. You got to get away from that computer because it's like 4%, 2% of the people get their jobs through their computers, guys. So we got to get away from there. We got to use it to help us make those connections, make those calls, and then we got to get out and have those meetings, okay? That's where the rubber meets the road. Is that fair? And if you don't know how to sell, you are selling yourself today. When I was in college, my professor would hand me a pen and he'd say, "Sell me the pen." And I'd look at it and I'd say, "Well, it's a really nice looking pen. It feels good in my hand. It's clean. I feel good that I could put it in my pocket and it wouldn't leak. I like the sleekness of it." Well, you are the big pen now. What differentiates you from all the other candidates that might be interviewing? Accountability groups. You've got a whole bunch of people here, Foster. Accountability groups. 3 or 4 people that are in like industries is a good thing. There's nothing wrong with that, because if there's a job open in Dallas and it's a sales job and it's a consumer packaged goods company, and we've got 3 or 4 people sitting around a table talking every week about what jobs you're seeing, where are you going to network, what are you doing, who are you talking to? If that job comes across the bow, we want one of you 4 right here in Dallas to get that job. We don't want somebody from New York or California coming in, okay? We want it here. So accountability groups are a great thing and a great way for you to relieve some of that stress as well. Last week was a really crummy week. I applied for 12 jobs and I haven't heard back from anybody. Gosh, I'm having the same problem. Maybe we should talk. Maybe we should figure, is there something we're doing? Let's try something new. Let's figure it out. So accountability groups are a great way to help energize yourself and to keep yourself accountable every day. You had a question, Craig.
All right, I got 2 questions for you. Number one, give us a ratio of how much time should we be networking versus trying to improve ourselves versus applying.
Yep.
Okay? Because I think a lot of people here don't really get that.
Good.
The second question is I'm actually trying to pivot out of my industry into another industry. What kind of advice can you give somebody that doesn't have the specific industry experience a lot of these companies
Good.
do?
Okay. So let's start with the first one. How much time, where should you be spending your time? First and foremost, finding a job is a full-time job. Okay, if you used to spend 40 hours at the office every day, then you better be spending 40 hours looking for a job. If you spend 50 hours, then you better be spending 50 hours. Now, you got to have a work-life quality too. This is a great time in your life to be able to take a break, take a vacation, go sit in the park and read a book, okay? So I want you to make sure that, when I say it's a full-time job, I'll give you an example. I used to go to the grocery store when I was unemployed. I'd go to the grocery store every day. And I always went about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't know why, but that was a good time when mothers were out with their kids or coming home from school. And I'd get in line, I'd put my basket down. Gosh, it's a beautiful day today. I get to enjoy this because I'm looking for a job. And every trip to the grocery store, I came home with a business card. My husband does this. My husband does this. So use yourself as a marketing tool, but what percentage of your time? If I were to break it out, I would say that I would use the waking hours, 7 a.m. until 9 in the morning, unless there's networking events that you can be going to do your computer work. And then I do my computer work from 6 until 9 o'clock or whenever you go to bed, 5 o'clock, whenever that last networking event is. And I used to have my schedule jammed with as many networking events as I possibly could go to. So if I wasn't here, I'd go out to South Lake Focus Group. And I'm not, there's a lot of different groups, and Foster knows that. And you meet different people at different groups. So, this is not an exclusivity thing here. You've got great resources here, but there's other resources and other networking groups that go on in Dallas. I wouldn't pay for a lot of luncheons, but I would keep an eye on the Dallas Business Journal to find out when they might be giving an award to somebody. If American Airlines is your target and they're giving the CEO an award for something, that may be worth a $50 lunch. Get there 45 minutes early, figure out who's going to sit at the first few head tables, make sure you got a stack of business cards, and try to meet as many people as you can. Stay for 45 minutes after, because they all stand around and mingle and chat about what they've done, okay? So these are just little tidbits, but I guess what I'm suggesting is that out of your job search, 75% of the time is networking, 25% behind the computer, if you were to chunk it into big chunks. Fair enough?
That's kind of what I was asking, and also this, self-improvement, like, trying to level up your skills and certificates and things.
I put that in the networking category because, you've got to always be practicing and sharpening that skill. Somebody was here from the PIC crew, amazing organization, okay? Those of you that are getting interviews but you're not getting jobs, I know it's hard to go to the psychologist. I know some people don't like to go to the confessional, but I'm telling you, go sit with the pit crew for 45 minutes. Those guys are going to love you. You're going to walk out of there with a boatload of confidence that you didn't have before you went in there. So those kinds of things I put in the networking category. Let's go to your second question. You want to build a bridge. Really good question. Anybody else got that question in the audience? Yeah? Okay. So you want to build a bridge. You're in this industry and you're trying to get to this industry. We just have to build a bridge. There's a lot of similar skills in this organization and what you've done for 20 years that are very similar over here. But there may be some very, I don't know. I don't know that it's I'm trying to think of an example of something that I've done recently where there was a fit. The bottom line is you've got to build a bridge, and then you've got to be able to tell stories about how you can help them successfully solve problems because of what you've learned and what you've done and accomplished over here. You see it a lot in non-for-profit, in the philanthropic world, where people are saying, hey, I have 40 years of corporate business, I want to go work in the philanthropic world. How do you build that bridge? But in a job situation, you just have to build a bridge, and you have to look for what are they looking for, what are the problems they're trying to solve, and there's a real high chance that you've done a lot of what they're looking for. You just didn't do it in their industry.
Well, I'm a VP of sales.
Okay.
Okay, so I got pretty transferable skills, but lately a lot of these companies are looking for specific industry experience, 10 to 15 years of knowing this, and this inside the industay. How do you pivot into something like that? That's the question I'm trying to
You want to move?
answered.
You want to go to South Dakota?
If they pay enough, I'll walk to South Dakota.
What industries have you worked in, Greg?
I've been in the consumer products industry. I've been in the industrial industry and the automotive industry.
Okay. So here's a pivot. Okay, I'm going to give you guys all the information. I'm going to open it up. Foster, how much time do we have? We have 10?
Take your time.
No, if anybody's got to leave, you're not going to offend me by getting up and going, because I know people have other lives. And who has not voted yet? Because if you haven't voted, you have no excuse. You've got to vote today.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
So, when you get through with this initial talk, you don't have to run off, do you?
No.
Because we'd have you come back
Yeah.
to answer some of these questions that are going to be popping up.
Yep.
I love that question, because I can't tell you how many people I talk to trying to figure out a way we can fit in some sort of way. Sometimes we can, and a lot of times we can't.
Right. So I'm going to open up the kimono, and I'm going to tell you who my client is and what I'm doing and who they are. And some of you might cringe when you hear it, but remember, I help companies fill hard-to-fill jobs. This company, the name of the company is called Silencer Central, and they manufacture and they sell silencers for guns. Now, when Brandon first called me, he's the CEO of the company, I kind of went, God, I got grandkids going to school, I just thought, I have guns, but I just don't. And then I learned really, really quickly, and I'll teach you all real quickly, that the silencer industry is, number one, a very, very regulated industry. You can't just go buy a silencer at Walmart. You can't go buy it at a gun show. You can't get a silencer anywhere unless you go through the government to get it, per se. And the people that use silencers are people that are gun activists, not activists, but gun users that go to the range. I go to the golf range 3 days a week, okay? There's a lot of people that go to the gun range and they shoot a gun. Well, the silencers are good for their arms because it takes out the recoil, and their ears because it removes the hit, okay? The military. So there's a lot of places where silencers are used, and it's done in a very safe environment. So I started to feel much better about the whole category. Well, this company is just going through hockey stick growth. So, Greg, you said consumer products, industrial, and so forth. I am not necessarily looking for a gun guy, okay? Okay. But I'm just saying, that's not the skill. They didn't send me off to find somebody that worked for a gun company, okay? And there's plenty of those people out there. So let me go back. So they hired me. They finally came on and hired me, obviously. I'm filling this job. And I sent them 4 candidates in the second week, okay, in calibration format. And the admin to the CEO sent a note back, and she said, we've worked with 4 recruiters for the last 8 months, and we've gotten 0 resumes. We've gotten 4 from you. And I said, well, this is just 4. I've looked at 54, but these are just the first 4 that I like. But my point is, so they're not looking for a gun person, but the problem that they're trying to solve is it's an inside sales organization, okay? It's not an outside, because we don't go to gun stores and so forth. It's all inside sales. And so that's what makes it a little bit different. I do want to talk to you afterwards about it. But the point that I'm trying to say is that if Greg was really interested in that and he wants to pursue it, what he's got to help me do so that I can help the company, okay? And I'll ask him these questions. Dude, we got to build a bridge between what you've done and where have you solved problems with an inside sales organization? How have you built new channels of distribution in your other businesses that you've worked? Those are the problems that I'm trying to solve for the sales piece of this function, and it does pay really well. Okay? So that's the way I think. And that's how I interpret what I'm doing real quickly for clients. But I'm sure you all have a lot of other questions. Did that help build the bridge?
It does. I mean, it's a tough situation because you don't have that much space on your resume to create those types of stories. It can only be so long. But yeah, I mean, you answered the question, so thank you.
Well, another time that I had to build a bridge was one time in my career I was working in all kinds of different technology, consumer packaged goods, 20 years, Pepsi, Dr. Pepper, 7-Up, okay? Then AT&T, okay? And started opening up all the retail stores, and then I did some other startup stuff and so forth, so on, la. And I went to work, I saw an opportunity to go to work for a company that had a software for companies to help build talent networks, okay? I had to build a bridge between what I was doing, but so I know every situation is completely different. There's not a cookie cutter to that approach, to building that bridge. Question,
Corner over here.
Hello?
Yeah. A question just to build on the previous questions about how to manage your time and how to customize not only your resume, but your cover letter and your LinkedIn profile, and just how to make that process more efficient. From my experience, I just struggle so much. You know, you mentioned, I don't know if it was an example from your personal background that you submitted 12 resumes in a week. I wish I could do 12 resumes in a month, because by the time you analyze the job description, run it through a tool like JobScan, get all the keywords, get all the keyword phrases, figure out what's important, then you customize your resume, then you're going to put that back into your cover letter, customize the cover letter. And
Stop doing the cover letter.
Okay.
Okay, take that off just take it away. Okay, keep going.
Okay.
That just saved you 10 minutes.
All right. Well, that's 2 or 3 hours. And then you come back to your LinkedIn profile and you realize, oh, goodness me, I don't have all those keywords I've now put in my resume or my LinkedIn profile. And is this recruiter going to check both my resume and my LinkedIn profile to make sure, hey, is this guy kind of like really being, okay?
No. And recruiters don't check all your social media either. They don't, there's tools that can do that for us if we want to. But so let's make sure we answer his question. So his question was, how much time, to take all the time to do this stuff? So number one, I'm not kidding when I say cover letters. If we had 20 recruiters in the room, I would be really surprised if 5 of them said they look at cover letters. I don't even glance at them. I don't even open them. Okay. And you were nodding your head as well. That you have a question, or you don't look at cover letters?
I do.
You do. You do. Okay. Okay.
I kind of have to. But
Okay.
Oh, okay.
But so the cover letters you can remove. I think what you're doing, you're spending a lot of time on making sure that resume matches up to the responsibilities of what they're looking for. And you might have to start being a little bit more selective of where you want to just send your resume that you've got in, because it's a good fit, and where you really want to take the time. So I think you're going to have to do some prioritization, and maybe there's A, B, and C jobs so that you can get in for more jobs. But I would add that element to each of those jobs you're sending applications in for. I would add to that the opportunity to reach out to somebody that you know in your network that has a contact at that company that you can accelerate your search through using. If you're just filling out applications all day, then you'll probably be coming to this meeting for a long time. I hate to be a Debbie Downer, but I'm telling you just don't get jobs today by filling out job applications. You've got to dig deeper. You got to go find somebody. You got to go learn about what's going on. Foster.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Mark's got a question.
So I have a question. As a new graduate who's in a specialized field, I'm an aerospace engineer. I'm seeing that entry-level jobs are always put at like a high experience. Like, for example, I was looking at an entry-level job for Bell Helicopter, and it was like, this is an entry-level job for, let's say, avionics or even just airframe. And they're like, we want you to have 5 to 10 years of experience.
Right.
So what would you suggest? What would you suggest?
Well, I started in the Boy Scouts when I was 12 years old, and we had an airplane flying contest.
Balls, I would.
No, it's entry level, and exactly, it's 12 years. So number one is that I would apply for those jobs all day long. Those companies are looking for young men like yourself. If this is a highly educated young man that's gone through a lot of different, to become an engineer, you said an engineer, right?
Yeah, an aerospace engineer and a physicist.
Right. So, okay. I don't see a lot of those jobs, but you're in a great market. You're in Dallas is a great market. And, there's a lot of aerospace here, whether it's with Southwest Airlines or it's American Airlines or it's in the manufacturers with Lockheed and Bell and then all the other there's what's the other big helicopter? Yeah.
Sikorsky and all sorts.
There's a whole bunch of, but then what I want you to also, here's where I want to challenge, and this is a good lesson for everybody, is that here's a young man that doesn't have an experience with 10 years with Lockheed. So there's not companies out there that would like to have him on their team because he's got that experience with Lockheed. But there are a lot of industries, young man, that are out there that support the industries that you want to work for, okay? These are suppliers to Lockheed. These are, they're part of their supply chain in some way, and they want to work with Lockheed, and they need strong engineers that can go in with their salespeople and sell and promote their products. You were talking to two people there, but there's a lot of industries that support the aeronautics industry that you should be looking at that aren't the Bells and the Lockheeds of the world, but they're the suppliers that supply them with products and services that would love to have a young, smart man on their team to help sell, manage, and work in those accounts, okay? So I think your oyster is the world is your oyster. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So my name's Ron Layton, and thank you for the advertisement for the pit crew, because I run the pit crew now. A couple of things that I continue to hear here. So I'm actually writing a white paper on this, how much time you should spend and stuff like this. The current statistics in 2024, between 87 and 90% of your jobs are not going to be found online. They're not going to be from applying. So I keep hearing people asking this question about applying. I'm telling you, stop spending your time there. Spend your time, as he's saying, networking. That's how you find your job. I'm an example. I'm retired in 2022. From 1976 to 2022, I found 0 jobs through applying online. Every one of my jobs was somebody that knew me, somebody that recommended me, and I'm sure I'm not the only person in this room that has that experience. But spend little time blind applying to a job, and the most part of your time doing networking or getting to know other people.
Yep.
Okay? So all these questions that you're doing about applying online, rethink the strategy. Put it into practice.
Yeah, so the question that I have, exactly what you just said, it kind of piggybacks on that. Question specifically for you, and also Connor, is that you told me that the company that you have contracted for now, the previous recruiters didn't submit any applications or resumes, as you say, but you submitted 4. And back in the day, as I recall, we used to get jobs just like we're talking about, the networking. So my question is to all of the recruiters, when you have a position that you're trying to fill like you did, where did you get the names for those 4 resumes that you submitted?
Yeah. So it's heavy lifting. It's really heavy lifting. And in this particular case,
In other words, you're not going to LinkedIn, or you are going?
oh, I'm using LinkedIn all day long. But that's where I'm going out and building relationships with people that have the experience of what I'm looking for. So in the first round, I was really focused on the marketing role, and I focused on people that had demonstrated results in building an e-commerce organization, okay? This company's got a good website. They don't have a great website, and they don't have a strong conversion rate of converting consumers that go to their website into buying customers. So there's a huge gap in the e-commerce of this organization, okay? They're in hockey stick growth. They're growing at 30% every year, okay? And so I need somebody with marketing that has those kind of skills. So I went out. I knew that I couldn't just post this job and pray that I get candidates that are willing to move to South Dakota, okay? So I went out and dug into the network. I looked for people that went to school in South Dakota. If you went and got your graduate or your undergraduate work in South Dakota, maybe you want to come back, okay? And there's 4 or 5 great universities in South Dakota. So I looked there, and a whole lot of other things that go through my head as I'm searching, but that's what I did. I didn't post it. I didn't wait for applications. They had already had these jobs open for a long time, so I didn't really ask them for lists of people that they've interviewed because they said they hadn't found anybody. So it was like, okay, well, the slate's clean, okay?
Yeah.
Before the next question, let's just go through a couple real quick cleanup things, okay? We're looking for a job. How many people here, you don't have to raise your hands. If you don't today on your cell phone have a personal greeting that is your name and it's not AT&T's greeting, please go home and change that.
Yeah.
okay? I hate it. I talk to candidates every day, y'all, and I just like, God, you're looking for a job, and why don't you do a better job of just this marketing yourself? So one, put a personal greeting in there, make it happy, do it in a happy place, record it 10 times if you have to get it right. In your email, do you have an email signature block, okay? In that signature block, at least minimum should be your name, your email address, and your phone number. If you're looking for a job, having a link to your LinkedIn profile is great. But then make sure you turn that on for every email you send and every email that you reply to, okay? As a recruiter, again, I can't tell you how many times that a company will call that I'm working with, hey, is Scott available today at 2 o'clock for a quick interview? It's 11 o'clock. Let me find out. Hold on. I'll call you right back. I hadn't saved his number because we've only talked to Scott once in my phone yet. So I go into my email and I look for Scott and I see his email and it's just got his name, but it doesn't have his phone number. And so I can send him a quick email, but I know Scott doesn't get back to email real quick. So I'm digging and diving to trying to find his resume. So make it easy for yourself and everybody you're communicating with. Now, if Jeff Morris were here, he would add one more piece of it, and I can't tell you how to do it. I've tried. I've gone to the Apple store. Somebody knows how. Maybe you can help me. But you should also do that on your cell phone as well, so that when you use your cell phone to communicate, you've got the signature block in there as well, okay? Again, I don't know how you do it, but if somebody does, they can teach me. And that's my coaching on just the basics of 101 housekeeping. So many people forget to do those little things.
Oh, and then Kurt, you go try to find it on LinkedIn, hoping that the number's going to be on LinkedIn.
No. Right. So if you're looking for a job and you haven't put in your summary section your email address and your phone number, go home and do it immediately. You will move to the head of the class when it comes to searching. Because as a recruiter, I only have one thing that I have an option. When I click on your LinkedIn profile, I only have one option. If I'm not directly connected to you, is to send you an in-mail. Okay, guess what? What percentage of people reply to in-mails? 8%.
Wow.
8. That's really low. Now, thankfully, mine are a little bit higher. I'm in the 16, 17 category. But imagine, when I start a search, I'll sit at my computer for 2 days and send out 250, 300 in-mails and communications to people, and only 40 of those are going to get back to me out of 200? That's pathetic, okay? So as a recruiter, if I click on your profile and you've given me your email address and your phone number, hoo-hoo, celebrate, ring the bell. I pick up the phone and I call you immediately, because then we can have a conversation. I can learn everything I need to learn really quickly, and whether or not you're the right fit for this role, and whether we should spend another 30 minutes together. So big differentiator.
Good
Yeah.
morning, Kurt, and thank you for being here.
Yeah.
I have a follow-up question regarding LinkedIn from a recruiter perspective.
Yep.
What advice would you give us in job search? Does it make a difference to have the open to work green circle? Or is it enough to just behind the scenes when we turn on the, hey, we're open to work
Yep.
and we're looking for these specific titles? My follow-up question, is there any other advice, tips, or tricks that you would give us in order to be found on LinkedIn by a recruiter? For example,
Yep.
it was great to say, hey, include your contact information in your summary of your profile. But anything else that we can show, we're open, we'd love to talk with you.
Good.
Thank you.
Good question. So first and foremost, if you're actively looking for a job, you put that ring around your head immediately. Okay, there's no exceptions to the rule. I had a debate with somebody about it a couple of months ago, and why are we debating this? This is like the silliest thing ever. If you are actively working and you are actively seeking new opportunities, you're a passive candidate. If you're actively looking for a job and you're unemployed, you're an active candidate. If you're an active candidate, you want everybody to know that you're looking for a new job. Your network is your net worth, okay? Put the green wreath, no exceptions, okay? It tells recruiters and it tells non-recruiters that you're looking. Why is that important? What was your name again, ma'am?
Kelly.
Kelly. I love that name. I've got a daughter named Kelly. So Kelly, let's just say, and this is hypothetical, but let's just say Kelly's a salesperson, and she used to work with Heather, and Heather and Kelly haven't worked together in a long time. But Heather's boss goes away for a week on conventions and stuff, and Heather's his admin, and she's really good at what she does. She knows that he's looking for some new salespeople. She doesn't have the recruiter package. She knows that the recruiting team's looking, but she's got extra time. So instead of taking an extra hour for lunch, she does what she's supposed to do, comes back, and she's looking online. And she comes across Kelly, and she doesn't even think of Kelly before. Okay? They haven't worked together in 10 years. And she's like, holy cow, Kelly could be an amazing addition to our team. She might not have looked at Kelly in the same light had that green wreath not been around her neck. Okay? So highly, highly recommend that you put it on. And there's really no excuses for not putting it on. Secondly, what else can you do? Email address, phone number in the summary section. Most unused real estate on LinkedIn, 2,500 characters. If you don't fill that 2,500 characters with things that you've done, words, keywords, then it's wasted real estate. Fill it up with words. Make sure you put your email address and your phone number. What else can you do is use the real estate that LinkedIn has given you to give me things that you've done. Don't copy your job, your resume. If you take your resume and cut the jobs you've had out and put it in LinkedIn, again, you've missed the opportunity to tell me as a recruiter what you've done. Use words and tell stories of what you've accomplished, okay? Those are the best things. Now, along the way, somebody had a question about keywords. He was, the gentleman in the corner was saying that he was updating his resume, LinkedIn, going back and forth, okay? If all of you today don't have one page in the back of your notebook that's keywords, all day long you should be thinking of keywords. You wake up in the middle of the night and you go, oh, I put industrial sales on there, okay? Keywords should be something you're thinking about all the time, and you should be updating that resume or that LinkedIn profile. But make sure that those keywords, you're doing it in two places. Make sure that you've smothered those keywords throughout your LinkedIn profile in different jobs that you've done as well. Those are the things that are going to make you more recruitable or easier to find, and your phone will ring because you're giving me the chance to call you directly, and we don't have to go through LinkedIn. Yep.
Go ahead.
For this LinkedIn, I think there in South Oak focus group, there is a specific expert who usually comes and tell you how to optimize your LinkedIn profile.
Yep.
Because LinkedIn runs on
Terry
algorithms,
Sullivan.
you need to crack it.
Terry Sullivan is the guy in Dallas. And anytime Terry's speaking about LinkedIn, I would highly recommend that you go. He's just an expert. And, I help out Jeff Morris, and I do once a month, I do a how do recruiters use LinkedIn, okay? And every month that I do it, I have to ask Jeff sometimes, what did LinkedIn do this month? They changed this, they changed that. Sullivan knows everything every day what LinkedIn's doing. He is wired.
And make sure you reply on the email, because algorithm really knows who's replying and who's not replying. If I'm replying and you are not replying, you are equally in his eyes, then I would be ranked. Secondly, for improving the productivity, there's a method that I'm able to crack, society method, that's called mass merge. That's not called emails. So when you see a company, which is, let's imagine 1,000 employees, and you wanted to work in finance, and you went into the LinkedIn and find out these are the 20 people who work in finance. You can filter it easily on the LinkedIn. Now, it's important that you don't have a network again. You can send them a cold email, 10 people maximum. I know it's going to take 10 or 15 minutes, but there's a command in Outlook, which is a combination of Microsoft Word and Microsoft Outlook that let you send 20 or 30 emails in probably 2 or 3 minutes. Explore that command, and don't send email to all the 1,000 people, because you can send it. But maximum send 10 or 15 emails and wait for 10 or 15 minutes. That's the best way to increase your network capability and firepower. That's the best way that I'm able to crack. I used it like I send probably 100 emails per day, that's all. 30 days, 3,000 emails. I probably get like 300 people per month to talk to. That has given me a lot of it. So explore mass merge,
And is it spelled M-O-S-S?
MASS.
M-A-S, mass.
Mass merge.
Okay, thanks.
And it's don't use Gmail. It has to specifically go from the edu so that it does not go into spam. That's the best way that I'm able to explore in the past 1.5 years. And at least you get a better response as compared to LinkedIn. LinkedIn Premium has a upper limit on 2,000 connection requests per week. And I have blocked my LinkedIn account multiple times. The best method is mass merge, 30 or probably 50 emails per company per day, that's all. You can send 1,000 emails per company, per day through Microsoft Outlook, but don't go beyond that. 50 or 70 is good enough. That's another way to increase the productivity. Thank you.
So we're talking about the fact that your network is your net worth. So one of the last suggestions I'm going to give you all is something that I wish I'd kept the statistics on it, but I promise you it works. Many of you have maybe heard me talk about this before, but I call it the prayer letter. Has anybody heard it? And you won't hurt my feelings if you've heard me go through this, because many of you haven't, and it might be a valuable tool. So your network is your net worth. Each one of you has got a list of people that you've worked with, worked for, people you've met at conventions, people you met on airplanes, people you met on vacation that were business executives. You all have a list of people. Now, some of you may have 1,000 people, and some of you may have 250 people. Some of you may have 50. I don't care. You each have a list of people that you've worked with that you know, okay? The first thing you need to do as you start a search, and many of you are actively in your search already, but if you haven't done it, let's just call day one today. Go home and develop that list. Put it all into an Excel spreadsheet. Email addresses and phone numbers. Activate your network. What do I mean by that? I want you to call everyone on that list. I want you to call them. Hey, John, Kurt here. You have 5 minutes? I'm actively looking for a new role. I really enjoyed working with you when I was at XYZ. Some of the opportunities I'm looking at include ... Telling him the kind of things that you're trying to do. He knows you already, so it should be a pretty easy conversation. You're not asking him for a job. You're just telling him that you're actively looking, and you're just saying, you're in my trusted network, and I hope that in the future, if there's any opportunities that come across your desk, that you'll consider me for that, or you'll pass on my resume, or you'll pass on that word, okay? So, day one, you got 100 of those, you got 400 of them, you got 30 days to make those phone calls. That's all you got between now and the end of March. Now the second piece of this is the most important piece, and this is where the prayer letter comes in. The prayer letter is you've already communicated with those people, and I'm going to tell you that month 2 in April, guess what? You got to reach out to every one of them again. And you're just going to say, Kurt, I just did that. I spent 30 days calling all these people. They're going to think I'm crazy. Okay, well, let's figure out a better way to do it. Use email then, okay? Grab all those email addresses. When you got them on the phone, make sure you've got their email address right, because people change email addresses like they do underwear these days. And we have personal email addresses and we have, work email addresses. So make sure you got the right email address. Grab all those email addresses. They all go into a BCC, okay? All into a BCC. If you've got 500, you might spread them into 250, but they all go into a BCC, and it says in the letter, in the subject line, great people know great people. This takes literally 4 minutes every month. Great people know great people. I continue to look for new opportunities. Some of the companies that I'm targeting this month include, and you give them 4 companies. You don't tell them what you do. You don't include a resume. You never send a resume to anybody unless they ask. Your resume is like really personal. You want to only give it to those people that it really matters, okay? So just don't blanket send your resume to people.
Yeah.
It says, great people know great people. I continue to look for new opportunities. These are my target companies. If you or anybody in your network has contacts with these or companies like these, I would greatly appreciate an introduction. Feel free to forward this email out to anybody in your network. And if there's anything I can do for you or a friend, don't ever hesitate to call. I'll be in touch in 30 days. Okay? And then make sure that signature block's there, got your email address and your phone number, because if they've got something, you want them to call you right away. I know people have got questions. Every month you send that out.
We're going to take a break after Trevor's question.
Okay.
We're going to take a break. I want you guys to hold on to these questions. I like what's going on here. This is why we're here, to get you guys questions answered. So in about 30 minutes or so, we'll be back, and then we'll continue this question and answer, if that's okay with Kurt.
Yeah.
Okay, Trevor.
Great. Kurt, nice to meet you. My
Nice
name is
to-
Trevor Heilman. I'm a program manager, or at least trying to get back into one. My question, patience is a virtue, right? But when working with recruiters sometimes, and I've got maybe 50 recruiters I've talked to at this point, when is a good time protocol? When's a good time to follow up and you're actively working and not being a harassment?
Yep, great question. So first and foremost, my rule of thumb is number one and always is you always continue to call until somebody tells you to not call again. But that's my old sales kind of, it used to get to be you call this person 8 times and they haven't called you back, and now it's just a game. It's like, I am sorry, dude, but now I am going to call you. Not every day. I'm not going to be obnoxious about it. I'm going to call you until I get you to pick up the phone or you call me back, okay? So that's my rule of thumb. But first, let's back up. If you're actively looking for a job, one of the places as you target, recruiters are your worst place to go, okay? I'm the worst person. Why? Is because I only fill 10, 15 jobs a year, okay? So the chances are that you're going to have the exact same skills of what I'm exactly looking for at the time you pick up the phone is going to be a real hit and miss, okay? Now, if there are recruiters that specialize in your industry, then I would continue to tag them and lean in on them and use the prayer letter as a way, customize a prayer letter for that audience that you send them a monthly update. They'll never see, if you put them all in a BCC, nobody will ever see who you're sending it to, okay? But I would use that type of communication with that particular audience than to try to call them every day. Recruiters and candidates get mad at me, okay? And not all candidates, some candidates get mad at me and they're like, well, Kurt, why wouldn't I be just a great fit for one of your companies? It's like, well, you might be. I don't know. I haven't seen that job yet. That company hasn't called me yet, okay? But I'm going to tell you that every search I do, the reason, I'm not going to say that I'm good at what I do, but the reason I'm different than maybe other recruiters is I start with a clean slate. I don't have 20 candidates that I go to because they're in this bucket over here. Because every job I take, I'm looking for something very, very specific, okay? Finished the CFO search over in Midland, Texas, okay? There's a lot of people that have got CFO experience in the oil and gas industry, but I needed a CFO that had commercial real estate experience as well, okay? Very unique fix. So even if I had a bucket of CFOs that were oil and gas, I'll communicate with them and hey, do you know anybody that's got this experience as well? But every search starts from scratch. So that's my advice in communicating with recruiters. And the reason a lot of recruiters aren't calling you back is because we get paid by companies, we don't get paid by candidates. And I met with a guy, and I'm going to end and let y'all go on break, but I met with a guy that was a partner at Korn Ferry for 25 years. He's left and gone out on his own. I had coffee with him last Friday after Mass, and he said, what do you do? What you do speaking to unemployed people about finding a what? What do you do? I say, well, every day I coach one candidate, and I do a lot of these speaking events because I can sleep at night, knowing that I've given somebody a little bit of help, and maybe their anxiety is a little bit lower than it was when they came in here, okay? But most recruiters aren't calling you back because they don't have that job yet. And they don't know how to coach and mentor and help you. And so instead of calling you back, you're just going into the bucket. I'm sorry.
That helps. There's also recruiters that call you for a position. You send in your information and you don't hear from them.
And then they ghost you. Don't you hate that? I try so hard not to do that. If I've done that to somebody in this room, I'm in the confessional right now. I apologize. I try not to do that. I know what it's like to get ghosted, so I'm in your shoes, and I hope I don't do that. But hopefully that helps. Okay, break time, and then we come back, and
Yeah, guys.
there's some more questions. And is the anxiety a little bit lower in here than it was this morning? I feel like it is.
I think so. Absolutely.
I feel like maybe it's just we've all settled in, we know each other a little bit better, but I just feel like there's a little bit more at ease. And I think that's really important what you said is that a job search is a journey.
Yeah.
Some people can find a job in 30 days, and other people it takes a long time. And it's not a sprint. It's a marathon.
No, it's not a sprint.
Yeah.
You guys need to pace it out, right?
Yeah, and one of the questions, Jeff is still here, he was asking me about that pace and about that, how do you manage that in your own expectations? Because you think you're getting really close to the finish line, and then they pull the rug out from underneath you and they tell you, we decided not to fill that job. We're going to put that on hold for another 6 months. And I know that happens all the time, and so I apologize for that. I don't know that there's anything you can avoid in doing that, but
That's part of it.
I think the biggest thing you can do is keep your bucket full, okay? And keep the blinders off. I think that, keeping the blinders off is absolutely critical when you're going through a job search. There's a brand I used to work for years ago. It was Ace Cash Express. And I don't think they've got an ugly brand, and I don't think they've got an ugly place in the market, but when you're recruiting finance people and you're recruiting, other executives that have come out of big company brands, they look at that brand and they just think it's dirty. It's not a brand that I like. Well, they serve a part of the community that's very needy for their services, and they're philanthropically, they give back millions of dollars to their communities. It's a really beautiful brand in what they do. So, keep the blinders off because you don't know everything. And Glassdoor, somebody mentioned, isn't always current. People put stuff out on Glassdoor because they're mad.
Yeah, that's true.
And so, dig a little bit deeper and don't just assume that brand's not a good brand because there could be a reason. And the last thing I share in this whole category of timing is if you're in a job search right now and you were recently, and I say recently, it could be within the last 3 months, if you were recently let go and you're carrying around this bag of anger, my recommendation is you figure out a way to drop that bag and get rid of it.
Cold shower, get over
So
it.
that you can get on to the next chapter in your life. That stuff is in your rearview mirror. And I only share that because it became really obvious. There was a woman that I placed with a company down in San Antonio, the Las Aguilias family. They're a multi-billion-dollar family. They sold this brand called Whataburger.
Oh.
Yeah, to a private equity out of Chicago, and the company generated literally billions of cash. And so they opened up this family office of 100 people. 100 people in a family office?
Yeah.
I placed the CAO, a chief administrative officer, with the family, and she was amazing. But the company had issues, and there were other things that were going on, and they recently let her go within the last 30 days. And she called me just again yesterday, and she's so angry still. And I said, you got to get rid of that anger. I said, before I can introduce you to anybody, before you do anything else, you've got to leave that anger. You're driving right now to Tulsa to go see your granddaughter, to be with your granddaughter because she's going to have her tonsils out. Leave all that stuff back in San Antonio and just enjoy the bluebonnets that are going to be coming up pretty soon,
they're
right?
already coming up.
Are they? Okay.
Yeah.
So get rid of that anger. If you've got it, even if it was a year ago and you're like, the thought of that person just makes my skin crawl. Get rid of that anger because you can't find a job. You can't interview effectively. You can't be efficient when you've got that bag of crud you're carrying around.
Right before, I'm going to get out of the way and let y'all have him, but I want to be the job father before I do. So Michael Cassaberry, right there, I'm very impressed with his background and who he is as a person. Make sure, if you guys haven't
We've
already,
already met.
Michael Cassaberry, perfect.
Yep.
And Peter Leahy is the other one.
We
just
talked.
want to make sure, perfect.
Got it. Yeah.
Perfect. I did my job. I'm out the way.
You're
talking about anger. Years ago, I was working at a company, and one manager was very angry at another manager and was writing an email to express himself. And after he wrote the email, he came to me. He said, I wrote the email, I put down everything I thought, and then I cleaned it up. Could I ask you to read it over and make sure that it was, that he'd removed the anger? So I read it over, I started laughing, and then I read it again, and I started inserting swear words. And he's like, how did you know? I said, you obviously didn't clean it up. And when you're talking about going in someplace, interviewing with anger, it's going to come through. It's going to show through. You can't clean it up, and so you got to get rid of that anger.
Yeah, it's, you know, the thing that you need to just keep in mind is, and you all know where I'm going with this, but you go in for an interview, and one of the things I can offer to you on the interviews, and Peter, I haven't read your book yet, but I'm looking forward to it. But in the interviewing process, you do this in the pit crew training, I'm confident. But in interviewing, there's two types of interviews. There's just a regular interview where people say, tell me about yourself, you know, and it's very, very generic questions. And that's because most people that interview don't know how, they've never been trained how to interview per se. And I know that sounds really queer. And here I am standing up here and saying that when I was with the Pepsi, well, actually when I was at the Dr. Pepper 7-Up company, because I was hiring, they put me through a week of behavioral training, behavioral interview training, okay? Now, this is a long time in my background. This wasn't yesterday. This is like 25 years ago, maybe. But I still remember it, and I've never forgotten it, and I still study it. The bottom line about interviewing, though, is that most candidates, most companies will not interview in a behavioral fashion, okay? Most companies don't know how to do that. But you as a candidate, if you know how to interview in a behavioral fashion, you will crush it. You will exceed every interview expectation that is out there. What do I mean by that? Okay, let me explain it just so you've got a little bit better view in it. We can talk more about it if you want to. But so many times companies say, so tell me a little bit about yourself. Okay, what do you tell? Where do you go? Well, I was born in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and I was raised in Okemos, right outside of Lansing, and where do you go? Where do you start? Well, you start with your elevator pitch, because you spent that 30-second elevator pitch, you're nervous. So you give them that 30-second elevator pitch about who you are and what you've done, okay? But going forward, they're not going to ask you about, well, tell me a time that you had to complete a project on time and you were behind schedule, you were over budget, and there was somebody on the team that you didn't get along with. Most likely they're not going to ask that question, but when they ask you about, so tell me about your leadership style, okay, that's a typical non-behavioral, but not a good interviewer. Tell me about your leadership style. Here's a chance to say, well, let me tell you about a project that I worked on that we did this and this and this, and this is what our objective was. This is what we ended up doing. We ended up finishing it on time. We did finish over budget a little bit, but the project accelerated growth and we generated an extra $42 million in revenue, okay? What did you do? Well, how'd you do it? What did you learn? What would you have done differently? Those are the questions, those are the behavioral questions that you want to answer every question that is being asked in the interview. What do you focus on? Where do you tell your stories? On the priorities. You know the priorities of the job you're going into interview. You know they're looking for these 4 things. They're looking for a strong finance leader. They're looking for somebody that can manage time change management. They've got to have somebody that's got M&A experience, and they want something else. Those are the 4 stories. You've got 8 written in your mind. You've practiced them. You know what you're going to tell them. And those are the stories you tell them as they ask different questions in the interview. But they're probably not going to ask you questions about those things. So you've got to interject and you've got to be prepared to tell the story. How am I doing? Is that anything like what you teach in the pit crew?
We will ask that question you said we won't ask.
Okay. So again, be ready to be behavioral ready to answer and to be a participant in the interview process. The last thing I'll give you in interviews is that the most candidates end interviews with one question, which is what?
Do you have any questions for me?
you have any just questions, or what are the next steps? Okay, those are good questions, right? I got a better one. Neil, this has been a really good exchange today. I've really enjoyed the conversation. Is there anything that we've talked about today that would eliminate me from having the opportunity to come in and meet with the CEO? Shut up. Don't say anything else. Okay? Now you've handed the ball back to the interviewer, and they're likely to go, well, gosh, Neil says to Kurt, I just wish you knew how to juggle swords and stand on your head at the same time. Well, I'm so glad you asked, Neil, because I'm learning these Band-Aids are on my hand for a reason. Okay? I'm just not very good at it yet. So it gives the interviewer, the interviewee, more confidence. That question takes boldness, okay? That takes confidence to ask that question, because it's a lot easier just to say, and what are the next steps? Okay? Kurt will be in touch, okay? Well, that's the last, we don't want an interview to end that way. We want it to end by, this has been a great conversation. You need to talk to Brandon, but he's on vacation until Monday. I'm going to send a note over to his admin, and we'll get you scheduled for another interview. Nailed it, okay? I know what the next steps are, okay? Or HR is going to be in touch, and they're going to start a background check, okay? I know where we're going. Or, gosh, that's a great question. Neil or Kurt, you just don't have anything what we're looking for. It's been a great conversation. I've gotten to know you well, but you don't have what we're looking for. Thank you. Okay? I get to go home and I don't have to worry about it. Let's go celebrate. I can take that off the list. Okay? So ask that good, impactful question at the end. Open-ended question. Questions?
You want me to just go? Yeah, I can talk about it. I have a couple questions that are unrelated, so I'll try to do them real succinctly.
Fine.
Okay, first question. So I'm a financial manager, and this is a software ERP question.
Okay.
I have various software packages, JDE with the GL and A&B on the mortgage side, and I work with Oracle Financials. But because of the lay of the land for the last 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 years, don't have Hyperion, don't have Tableau, don't have Essbase, all the, quote, sexy ones. And it seems like, I know I have all the experience. I know how I present myself. But a lot of times there's 10 lines, whether it's a job description or it's talking to somebody. And one of the lines is 5 years of Hyperion preferred, which really means you better have Hyperion. And I don't know, I don't know how to get around that. Because if you put me on the ground running and you put me in a job tomorrow, I'll learn Hyperion.
Mm-hmm.
I've done it 20 times before.
Right.
But you never seem to be given the chance to get to that point where you can show them that. So I want to ask you how to deal with that. That's number one.
Okay.
Question number 2 is communication style. So I'm not trying to do this at all, but I'm a very good manager, people manager. I'm not the manager who says, okay, you were hired to do this, you figure out how to do it, go do it. I involve myself in the people that work for me. I work with them if they have trouble, and we get them to a point where they know the stuff as well as me. So at some point, if I want to move up, I've got my replacement right there, and bingo, bango, it's easy. It seems like that skill set is really undervalued in today's job market. Like, it's almost like if I bring it up on an interview that, people have loved working for me, it's like they really don't care. So I just wanted you to address that too.
Good.
Okay.
2 good questions. So the first question is a question about technology. So that's a really, really good question. And I don't have a clear answer here. Okay, I could sit up here and make up a bunch of nonsense, but it wouldn't make sense. I think the best advice that I can give you is that I would say, I know everybody that comes in here says that they can learn it really quickly, okay?
I think your battery went out.
Oh, sorry. I know that everybody that comes in here says that they can do that, but completely transparent. Let me share with you where and how I've done it, okay? And be ready to build those bridges and tell that story. Does that help? But this is a really, really good question, and it's not going to go away because as new technologies come in, even if they're not better than what we were using before, somebody in their corporation's been sold this new bag of technology that everybody's got to figure out how to use. And it's not stopping. I mean, we're going to continue to see this evolution for the next 25 years.
It's really more about how you're presenting that as opposed to that being an issue.
I think that's right. And that's where I'd go to the pit crew and I'd practice how you communicate and how you tell that story, because I think that it is in the way you communicate it. The second thing is, I think that people do value very much leadership, and they do value very much hands-on, and that's what you described to me, is that you're a hands-on manager. You're not afraid to get your feet wet and your hands dirty, okay? And so, again, I would use stories, because that's when somebody says to me, I'm a really good people manager. I'm like, oh, I'm so happy you're a good people manager. Your people like you. But if you say, I'm a really good people manager, and let me give you some examples of what I've done and how I've managed people, now you've taken this conversation to a whole new level, because that's what I'm looking for. Okay? Does that help? Very explicit. And tell the story. Use that behavioral model interviewing. Again, take those stories to the pit crew, hone them up. Okay, guys, there's times in life when we can write what we want to say, okay? You can write it out. It doesn't mean you're going to read it. It just means you can write it out. I talked about the elevator pitch. You all need a 30-second elevator pitch. If you haven't gotten one that you like, then go home today and make it a priority to write an elevator pitch, okay? Bring it back here, practice it on a couple of people, okay? And if you don't know what a 30-second elevator pitch is, Google it and you'll find 1,000 examples out there. But the 30-second elevator pitch is one example of where you can write stuff out. These interview questions that we're talking about are times that we can write these things out. We can literally write the examples and the stories that we want to tell. Doesn't mean we're going to go home and sit down and, honey, for dinner tonight, I'm going to tell you some stories. Doesn't mean you read it to anybody else, but in your mind, you've prioritized it and you've got it all written out and you know what you're going to say. And so you just look and sound so much better prepared than anybody else. Okay. And so you take that experience and now you layer onto it amazing communication skills, because you're really telling stories and it's a differentiator.
It's when it becomes a part of your persona, when you don't even have to think about it coming out when you're talking. It just kind of becomes a part of what you.
Right. Another thing that most people, if you're not in finance, I'm not trying to offend. What was your name again? Dean? Most finance guys aren't real people persons. Who wants to go to the finance guy's office? That appointment, that's like, I got a doctor's appointment this Thursday for my 6-month checkup. I'm going to cancel that appointment. I'll come see you next week. So, but most finance guys aren't real personable as well. So when you can tell somebody in an interview that you've got a personality that goes along with it, and you've got character, and that you've got integrity in your word, and you can again demonstrate that in what you've done, you'll accelerate all your conversations, and you can make a joke of it as well. Is that, most people aren't really, most finance guys aren't, real gregarious, but I'm hands-on, feet wet. Yeah. Questions?
And I was just going to add to that, as a guy that's trying to get out of finance. Basically, I would suggest, as I've interviewed folks in the same situation, dissect those platforms as something that's intuitive and very similar to something you have worked in, and those that are not, and this is how you would overcome it. Like, look at my resume, we didn't even use this, and I was there 10 years. So like Hyperion, man, you don't worry about it. You're going to be fine. but I'm telling you, it's very Excel. But if you see Bex, like SAP Bex, God help you. I mean, it's horrible. So, but you have to make a story if that's what they love, especially if they're a German-based company or something. So you're gonna have to say, well, I understand this, what I've read, you know. And so that's where you can leverage, you've done some homework. Like Kurt says, you've gone and done maybe a 2-hour class or something. But a lot of them are intuitive, like Tableau is like PowerPoint, and you can play in it. That's right, and you're selling it, okay, that's all I had to add to that, it's, yeah.
Somebody else. I know there's got to be a couple more questions.
I'd like to address the gap in employment. So I know a lot of us have been looking for 5, 6, 8 longer months. I know that I've been told, networking is a good thing to be doing, volunteering is a good thing, improving on your skill set, doing those things to fill that gap, in addition to all the 40 hours per week stuff you just told us we need to be doing. But is there a way to address it on the resume to get past the hiring manager that says, oh, they haven't been working for 9 months, next?
Great question. So we can't lie about some of this stuff, but in general, if you were let go at the first of the year after January 1st, you can go till about March 15th, April 30th before you put on your LinkedIn and so forth that you're an active candidate. So there's a little bit of grace there. I think that more candidates feel the pressure than companies do. Again, and I don't want to misspeak, but again, as an executive recruiter, I don't look at that at all. Now, if somebody's been out for 3 or 4 years, their saw may not be as sharp as a couple of the other candidates that I'm talking to. So it depends on what they've done with that time. If you can put in there, so this is one of the things that I try to coach candidates as often as I can. You see in a lot of resumes where there are gaps or there are short employment stints, okay? If you have the ability to turn those into contract work, do so and put contract on there so that the recruiter that's looking at your LinkedIn profile or looking at your resume doesn't misread it as this guy can't keep a job or this gal can't keep a job. So having multiple contract jobs, people understand it. I was hired for this, I did it, I accomplished it, and I moved on, okay? So we can look at contract jobs, short term, 6 months, 9 months, a year, no offense at all. But let's just say that you haven't had a contract job and you've been looking for 5 months, get rid of the anxiety. It's okay, okay? There is a job for you out there, okay? We're going to find it. It's just going to take a little bit more time, and it may be the purple squirrel. But don't try to make it up. You got a gap, and own it. Now, I see somebody that's going to help you maybe with maybe a little bit better answer.
In 2024, the average job transition time is 5 months.
Yep.
So those of you that are
5, 6 months.
don't worry about it. Those of you that 9 months, really don't sweat. Hiring managers gonna put a big rate.
And then there's a time that some of you will decide, that you've been out for 8 months or so, 7 months, and I know this from speaking to some of these groups that there's a group of guys that decide, 2 days a week we're going to go work at Total Wine, okay? It's not what I want to do full time, but you want to keep your saw sharp and you want to stay in the market and you want to have conversations and you want to get out of the house, okay? That may not be a bad option, okay? And it doesn't mean that you've got to do Total Wine in your neighborhood where you see all your friends. Go up to Plano or come down to Dallas or something. But, don't look at it that way, because I frequently think of myself as, I love the recruiting business and I'll do it as long as I can. But if there was a golf course out there that said, will you come work for us 4 days a week and be a starter from 8 o'clock until, 11 o'clock, sign me up. I might not get paid a lot of money, but I'll play some golf and I'll meet a lot of fun people. So I guess I'm not trying to make light of the fact, but if you haven't had a job in a while and you need that income, there's other things that you can go do that'll take your mind off of it and will provide you with a little bit of cash.
Okay, I got a quick question, Kurt.
All right, quick is the key word.
You can't harass the willing, Foster, remember that. Okay, in this day and age, Kurt, you have hybrid, you have on-site, you have remote. Opinions? I mean, where I am in my career, actually, I had an interview today, and they said this is a hybrid position, and I said I'd be more than happy to go to Huntsville a couple times a week. They said, well, you really need to live here, and I said, I'm not going to declare, I want to stay here. What's your opinion of hybrid remote on-site?
Yep,
Over.
great question. So for a long time, I didn't see a lot of it, but I've just recently have started to. The CFO job that we filled over in Midland, Texas is a remote role. The guy's going to live here in Dallas. He's got a family, and he's going to go over there once a month for a couple, 4 or 5 days. And then he's going to come back here. And they've had a real good experience with somebody in their organization that was going to leave their company because he had to relocate to be closer to family up in the Philadelphia or Pittsburgh area. And so the company said, wait a minute, why are we letting this resource go? He's amazing. Let's give him a chance to do this remotely and see if it works. And he's just been an amazing employee, and he probably works 70 hours a week because he's at home. But they've had a really good experience. So when we went to find somebody that would move to Midland, Texas, that's got the experience, that's a hard relocation. I mean, Midland's not a bad place, but if you're not from there, it's not a place that a lot of people want to go and stay for a long time, especially to raise kids. So I'm seeing more and more of it. And in this particular case, I told them that this is a talent pool if we have to have somebody that lives in Midland. And this is a talent pool if we have to relocate somebody. I'll go regionally. I won't go to California. I'm not going to go to New York because that's just ridiculous. But this is so I show them what the talent pool looks like and what we've got there. When I show them that this is the regional talent pool and these people would be willing to work hybrid, meaning coming out there once a month, they were like hybrid all over it. We're ready to do it, okay? This company I'm working up in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, absolutely not. He's had bad experiences, and he wants somebody on the ground. He's rebuilding a sales and marketing organization, and there's no question. So I think it's worth the question, and I think it's, if you can get by, if a company is saying, we want you here, then I would continue to, just explore, what does it mean by being here? Do you want me here Monday through Friday? Is there relocation? Are you willing for me to be here Monday? I'll be here Monday at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I'll leave Thursday night after work. I'll work Friday. I'll just be in my remote. So I think it's up to the candidate to push the envelope now on what they mean by remote and hybrid, because I think that companies do want their employees back in the office in general, but there's some roles out there that just aren't going to be found or filled by candidates that want to live or are willing to relocate to that area. Excellent.
Let him work from home and come and visit the Huntsville 1 week.
And when was your interview with the president?
This morning, actually.
You had the interview with the president?
And the recruiter, yes.
Okay, so in my follow-up note, okay, what I would do is I would consult with somebody here that's smarter than me, but I would write a note that, addresses this, that I have demonstrated my ability to work in a remote situation and be effective, and put it into a sentence or two. Don't do 4 paragraphs. A sentence or two that reiterates what the recruiters. Send it to the recruiter before you send it to the president for his blessing. Okay, so just a few quick suggestions. I'd get that email off today. I wouldn't wait until Friday. And in this particular case, I love handwritten notes, but in this particular case, I wouldn't wait for a handwritten note. I'd get that email in his inbox before the end of the day. You don't want to we don't want to be desperate, right? But before the end of the day is very legitimate. Does that help? Okay. I know we're coming close. 11:40, questions.
I didn't get to comment on Total Wines. You mentioned about Total Wines,
Yeah.
right? So how is it, I'm looking for a director job, that Total Wines experience, how is it going to help me?
You're not going to put it on your resume.
Oh.
It's just for personal. It's just, I need to get out of the house. I need something to do. I want to put a little bit of cash in my pocket. I don't need benefits, but it's just that I'm just going to have a better mind knowing that twice a day or twice a week, I can go somewhere that's my happy place.
How can I put it in my resume?
You don't put it in your resume.
So how can I cover it up?
You don't need to cover. Oh, that during that whole time, you're still looking for a job. Yeah, you're not trying to cover up, but you just need to put that job in there. Yeah, yeah.
And don't put too much wine in there.
Hey, Kurt. So this is my question to tee it up. I recently celebrated a birthday. So,
Yay,
woo!
Kelly.
And the postscript to that is I'm feeling my age. So my question to you is I look around at my fellow searchers and I see that for many of us, the words seasoned professional could apply, or veteran, or, basically I'm alluding to we're of an age and stage in our career that at times can be working against us in the job search. Could you speak to that a little bit?
So get that out of your mind immediately. I work for a company down in Llano, Texas, put a CEO in a company that's an $80 million distribution wholesale hardware company. I put a guy in there who was 64 years old. They want him for 7 years. He wants 7 more years, 8 more years. He's there to transition the business from the second generation to the third generation. That's all he's there for. And we paid him a lot of money, and we paid him a relocation, and we put him on a long-term incentive. So don't get that age thing out of your mind. Yeah. It's, if you got to go home, and I don't want to say color your hair because it makes you feel younger, whatever you got to do, it's your perception. It's not my perception. Not to say that every job looks at it that way, okay? But if I was in a job search, I would just say, I'm experienced. I got so much knowledge to bring to the table. I'm current. I'm invaluable. I'm all the things, attributes that describe you is what I'd be selling myself on. But get that my age thing out of your head. I don't know. I mean, you do a lot of searches, Foster. I don't know that there are probably, out of 1,000 searches I've done in 15 years, I don't think that there's 1 or 2 times where somebody said, we really want somebody young.
There, guys, because of the dynamics of what we've been through, there are a lot of positions that need our level of experience. Now, y'all don't throw anything at me because I know everybody in there is not my age. But if you are here looking, you're not too old to get a job. And out of this group, last year, a guy 77 years old got a project, and he's making the most money he's ever made in his whole life, and they changed him. He's working permanent now for the company.
There you go. So just put it out of your mind, and it's on your driver's license, and that's the only time you got to look at it. So just forget about it, because I'm old too. Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna say that. But.
I'm older than you think I am.
On the, I don't even know if I need that, as you said, but on the thank you letter, I like the idea of writing it, but the speed, sometimes it takes 8 weeks for a decision. Sometimes it just depends on where they're at. What would you recommend to kind of differentiate yourself in what could be kind of a homogeneous bunch of candidates? And would you add a reference early, later? Because sometimes I'll do one interview and I'll go straight to the CEO and the hiring manager, basically, but then they want second and third opinion. And I think that giving them a reference and queuing up that reference, say, look, I don't know if they need it, but they may call you. Good, bad, indifferent. And then the last question is, and I don't spend a lot of time on LinkedIn outside of research. I'm the network. I believe in that. But if they ask for your salary requirements, I know you need to know the market and your worth. I mean, there's times I put $1 and then I waste the area for the cover letter to say, we can talk if you're serious about my, candidacy. And that's kind of how I play that.
Salary's the hardest question that comes up. Okay. And I always ask it up front. I work with a lot of other recruiters that ask it at the end of the interview or the end of the discussion, but I ask it right up front because I want to make sure that we're on the right page up front. I'm working for a company, so it's not my budget. And so when I ask a candidate, can you give me an idea what your salary range, what your compensation range is? I'm looking for what it is. I mean, I'm looking for what that number is. You just have to be honest, okay? When you start to muddle about where, it depends on the job. A lot of candidates say, well, it depends if it's a great job. Okay, I get that. But you still got to get paid to come to work. If you were making $300,000 before, and this, and you're looking for a $300,000 a year job, and let's just say that this pays $100,000, you're not going to be interested in my role. Okay, so let's get it fixed right up front, figure it out. So that's why, just have your number and be able to say up front, this is my base salary and this is my bonus expectations, 20%, 30%, whatever it is. But just be ready to tell that number up front. Now, the second question, or the first question you asked was in terms of
The
thank you note. Great. Yep. Yeah. So there was a guy, Dennis O'Hagan.
Oh, yeah.
Dennis O'Hagan, some of you might have known Dennis. He's passed, but it was a really, really, really good friend of mine. And he used to call me Apples. So you can go as crazy as you want on that thank you note or that presentation. You just have to understand what the vulnerability is of the company. I think a handwritten thank you note. You're interviewing in town. I carry thank you notes with me in my car. I go to the Starbucks that's closest by afterwards with my computer because I'm an awful speller, and I write out that thank you note in an email, and then I sit and I write it real neatly and make sure that everybody can read the words, and then I deliver it back to the office, and I go into the receptionist and I say, Sally, it was so nice meeting you earlier. Will you make sure that Bob or Mary or whoever gets this thank you note, okay? Don't put it in the mail. If you can, send it right there. If you are in marketing or sales and you want to really be creative, the reason I was Apples was that it was a job that I really wanted. And the hiring manager told me, she said, I've got apples and I've got oranges, and you're my apple. You are the profound sales rep. I have no question that you'll crush it in sales, but you know nothing about our industry, right? Okay. So what did I do? I developed a PowerPoint presentation that was 4 pages on why apples were better than oranges. And I got a nice box, and I went to Central Market, and I got 6, because the company was headquartered in Washington. I got 6 beautiful Washington apples, and I packaged it up real nice, and I put the PowerPoint on the top, and I FedExed it off to their offices. Okay? Everything's working really well so far, right? You like it? It was a great idea. Well, guess what? The woman that I was sending the apples to doesn't work in the office in Seattle. She only went there once every quarter. She was running the sales for the half of the country, so she was traveling all the time. So after I didn't hear back from her, because I thought that was a pretty creative presentation, I decided that I better call the admin and let her know that that box of apples is in the waiting room for Jennifer to pick them up. Anyway, I did get the job. So you can be as creative as you want to, but a handwritten note highlighting some of the things you talked about, or the weaknesses or the deficiencies, in this case, the opportunity to work hybrid, putting those words together, highly, highly recommend handwritten notes. Nobody gets handwritten notes anymore. My kids don't even, I send them a lot of money for Christmas. They don't even send me a handwritten note. And I taught them as kids because they couldn't have lunch for Christmas until they wrote all their thank you notes.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
So stay right here. We want to take a picture.
Okay.